Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview for Girls in Tech, and right in the middle of Penn Station as well. So many of our members are on Twitter, either for personal or for business. Can you share with us the different ways that people use Twitter for?
Well, I think it varies. I don't think there's a difference between personal and business. I think that the border really is in your mind in terms of what you're trying to do. Whether you're trying to send a message out, whether you're trying to connect, whether you're trying to engage people. You know, some people are using Twitter to make statements, and they really don't care what anyone else has to say about their statements. The other people who are discovering that for the first time, maybe ever, there's an open hailing frequency for conversations to be had anywhere in the world between any two or more people. And they need to discover, when they discover this, they'll realize how powerful this platform has become. Because it's really 40 years in the making. You know, Twitter just happens to be at the right place at the right time to enable the conversations. But in terms of what people are using it for, you know, there are probably 50 different disciplines at any moment in time that are being connected on the personal side, on the business side, and of course many business sectors. But you know, people are using it for love and romance. People are using it for publishing. They're using it to find jobs. They're using it to change the world. They're using it to affect global change. They're using it, you know, in education in many, many different ways. It's really how they want to do it is limited by their own mind. And how they approach it, and then who they talk to, and how they talk, and how they listen. But at the end of the day, it's about listening, connecting, engaging, and sharing. And those folks who understand that will understand this much better as a medium. For people who think that Twitter is just about sharing irrelevant facts about themselves, they're missing the point. Because this really is not about them, it's about the people around them and the ability to connect with everybody else.
Great. And then I've learned at a 140 conference, it's not about the number of followers you have. So how could someone drive meaningful traffic to their Twitter account?
Why would you want to drive meaningful traffic to your Twitter account? You know, I mean, look, if you're the chief marketing officer of Boeing and you have 100,000 people following you, or for that matter, 10 million people following you, and none of those people are buyers of aircraft, how useful are those people? Yet if you're the chief marketing officer of Boeing, and you happen to have the buyer from JetBlue and the buyer from Delta and the buyer from Continental, and so you only have 3 followers, I'd say those are 3 pretty engaged possible followers to have. I mean, the numbers are meaningless. There's never any indication in terms of how many of those people who are following you are online at any moment in time, how many of them are active, how many of them are really engaged, and how many of them really care about you. Or for that matter, whether or not they even speak the language that you're speaking. All they are numbers. So you have to pile way deep below those numbers to understand the effectiveness of any of this. And so, if anyone who stands here today and tells you, calls themselves an expert in this platform, you know, I just refrain from any of that stuff because, frankly, 20 years ago, there was a business. People held themselves out as experts in spreadsheets, and for a moment in time, you paid a premium because of your knowledge. And right now, that's happening in the world of social media because it's cool and hot. Well, sooner than you realize, it's not going to be so hot because the information that we have will be widespread and understood by everybody, or by most people. So you know, I've been advocating that social media experts need to go get a job now so that they'll be there, so they'll have some profession when this stuff becomes common knowledge. But in terms of how to drive traffic, I guess if I had to do that, it would be have something meaningful. It would be an engagement level. It would be something where there's a reason why someone would follow it. I mean, what we're seeing in the social communications is a rise of consumer-to-consumer marketing, the ability for some consumers to influence the buying habits of other consumers. So when the brands are actually being disrupted. At the same time, we're seeing an evolution or revolution in how businesses are operating because businesses for the first time have to listen. When large monolithic corporations start start actually having internal listening departments, because they care or have to care about what their competition and what their customers and what their friends and relatives and otherwise employees are saying about the company. That's different. For the first time, everyone has a voice. And the really interesting thing about this, I think, is that people discover they have a voice. It doesn't matter how many followers they have. Everyone's opinion matters. In fact, everybody matters. And that everyone, in their own way, can affect change. So, you know, if all you're looking at Twitter is ways to drive traffic to your website, you're missing the point. And you're missing a golden opportunity to change someone's life and maybe be affected by it yourself. And maybe you're losing the opportunity to affect change in your own right and, for that matter, discover your future. Because it's not so much about the here and now, but it's about tomorrow that matters more, in my opinion. And that it's really much deeper than the shallowness that some people look at this marketplace. I mean, the other thing is, for the first time in human history, we have a chance to create a legacy for ourselves. I mean, if you've ever wondered what your parents or grandparents or great-grandparents were thinking at a given moment in time, unless they had it written in a diary, you probably never heard it. Well, right now, in 2010, everyone's leaving breadcrumbs to their future legacy, whether they realize it or not. And people who are tweeting but think it's silly may not realize that 150 years from now, their great-great-great-grandchildren, they actually say, gee, so that's what they were thinking at that moment in time. That's why they did what they did. Because we actually have a chance right now between audio recordings and video recordings and things like Twitter, where we can actually capture moments in time and leave behind breadcrumbs for not only ourselves, but for our legacy. And I think that if you go into a room and ask people if they want to be remembered for doing something, they'd be lying if they said no. And that for the first time ever, we actually can even influence ourselves. We can actually say something today and 3 years from now, impress ourselves, make ourselves feel better because of our own words. So there's a lot going on in play here. So if you're just in this for the here and now, if you're just here for the tactical, how to work the system and how to benefit from it, there are lots of things you can do right now, but you're mortgaging the future, which I think you don't want to do. And I think that if you look at it from a legacy perspective, you look at it from a how to grow perspective and then how you can affect change and how you can make the world a better place perspective, it's unbounded in terms of what it really can do.
Right, and then for a business, so if and we all hear about authenticity and engagement on social media and Twitter, so for a business, how personal or how kind of casual should they go?
Well, again, I don't believe there's a difference between business use and personal use on Twitter, and that's the point. That it's while I've discovered the humanity behind all this, it's the businesses that actually realize they're dealing with humans win. And so if you happen to be working using Twitter for business, the moment you, as the business Twitter, allow yourself to be vulnerable, allow yourself to have feelings, allow yourself to connect with the digital souls or just the souls of the other folks that are online, you have a much stronger relationship with these people for doing nothing other than being who you are. So if you have to explain about authenticity and transparency, then I think you're missing the point, because at the end of the day, we're all human unless we're bots. And that if you are a business trying to connect with other businesses or other people, there's a level of vulnerability that makes it not only authentic, but real. And when you have these feelings and you have the ability to connect, billions of dollars will be created in value because of it. Because it's no longer are you reading the company line, you are the company line. So that if you're at Chevy and you're the one representing the company right now, then all of a sudden, or you're at American Express, or you're at Kodak, all of a sudden these large corporate brands are now being brought down to a person or persons. And when that person speaks, or you're at U.S. Air Force and you're speaking to people, well, there's a person behind that. And so when you actually can show feelings and like things and engage at that level, it's amazing. It's totally amazing. So this is all about being personal. It's like, it's like people say when someone does something wrong.
To the station.
That way.
Well, why do you say that when I'm giving? Because that's told me to come this way.
I go to the Long Island Railroad. If you turn behind you, the sign says that way. No, it says, see, waiting area and information. Railroad.